So, Amy Klobuchar, she's from Minnesota. If you listen to that podcast, you can get her background. For you, Chris, what's her plan right now? What's her path as she sees it in her mind to this nomination?
The first thing that I find fascinating about her, the Washington Post did a great piece on her dad and her relationship with her dad, a very fraught one. In Minneapolis was back in the days of newspapers. Every big city newspaper had a columnist who was sort of the Joe Sixpack regular guy. He would do cultural commentary, he would do sports, he would do funny, he would do serious, and he was sort of the man of the people columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Jim Klobuchar. He was a regionally very famous guy, but he was also very sick with alcohol. The hell he put his family through, and his rages and his anger and all of the things that his daughter went through. And the Washington Post this week did a really good job of tying that in with her story. You know, Klobuchar is one of those candidates, one of those people who in life, and I think this is creditable in many ways, doesn't think that emotionality and the performative nature of things is important, right? How she feels about things is less important than the thing that she wants to do. She's a very no-nonsense, very Midwestern person. But that means that it's hard for voters to get a sense of her. But I think it is very necessary for her because she does have this very interesting, very compelling story. What drove her to be a lawyer? What drove her to become a prosecutor? What drove her to politics and government in the way that she has is deeply rooted in a deeply troubled childhood. And that's an interesting story, by the way, that many millions of Americans can relate to. And I think she is in a position where she needs to differentiate herself from, now there is a universe of U.S. senators, now including Michael Bennet from Colorado, but that definitely includes Amy Klobuchar, or that definitely includes Kristen Gillibrand, that definitely includes Kamala Harris, definitely includes Cory Booker, who are sort of running in the same vein. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. None of them have enough support to break into the top tier. She's got to show voters not just that she is a more moderate kind of Democrat who could take on Donald Trump in the Midwest, but that she's somebody who can answer that most important question that we ask every election. Like me, she needs to demonstrate that she's a person with a heart for the people who feel left out and marginalized in America today.
And suburban moms, I thought that was an interesting part of the podcast that you all were talking about, because when you think about a path to a nomination or even a path into the general election, you think of per se, right? But it was interesting to think, oh wait, can you actually make it more granular and look at suburbs? And doesn't Amy Klobuchar or any of these people, I guess Biden appeals to suburban women, but I thought that was an interesting part of the podcast. Wondering where you came down on that.
So, Nate Silver, Harry Enton, me, a lot of people have been talking about how Democrats are having the wrong conversation. Just about choosing a more moderate candidate in order to be competitive in the general election in the suburbs. It's about where is the actual base of the Democratic Party. And if you were to just follow Twitter or you were to just listen to Democrats on cable news, you would have this belief that the Democratic Party is a really radical left party, that democratic socialism is the main artery of very intense intersectionality arguments about racism and gender, and all of that is at the center of the Democratic Party. But that's just not true. And Joe Biden's success has actually revealed that. When we look at, you have all of these candidates who are, and I think Gillibrand is a really good example, trying to find the narrowest slice of the most liberal, most exotically liberal policy positions to adopt, where in truth, the Democratic Party is the plurality of Democrats describe themselves as moderate to conservative. The party is 60% female.
and as Joe Biden's lead demonstrates, almost half